All right, y'all. The NCAA has eligibility on its mind. Let's talk about what's going on. Well, earlier this week, the NCAA indicated that they were pursuing or contemplating the 5-for-5 rule, meaning 5 years of eligibility, period, full stop. Okay, so not the 4-for-5 rule, 5 years to play 4 seasons, 5 years total. So you could potentially play 5 seasons. Now, the way it would work is that it would start from, the 5 years would start from the year you finished high school or your 19th birthday, whichever came first. Okay. The only exceptions would be for maternity leave, military service, or religious missions. Now, that was April 2026. October 2025, if we go back in time, the NCAA said they had zero appetite for this. They said they were not contemplating the 5-for-5 rule. It was not on the table. They were not doing it. So what happened between October 2025 and April 2026? Where a lot of things happened. Let's just run through a few of the things that happened. Carson Beck, if we recall, the former University of Miami and University of Georgia athlete who was in his 6th year of football athletics, 6th year of eligibility, indicated in response to a question from a reporter about how he reacted if he was in class a day that something happened around when the playoff was going on. And he commented that he was not in classes and that he had graduated 2 years ago. Graduate degrees take a long time. Clearly, he wasn't going to be around next semester and hadn't registered, all implying that academic pursuit had nothing to do with his graduate career. Okay, so Carson Beck out there. We have most recently Cornelius Brown IV, who was granted an 8th year of eligibility by the NCAA. He has been at Georgia State, UT Martin, and most recently in Alabama and A&M. He's had a career that has been plagued with injury, so he got an 8th year of eligibility. We also remember Solomon Tuliapupu, most recently in Montana, who's been granted a 9th year of eligibility. Yes, that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of eligibility because he has spent most of his career legitimately being injured. 9 years of eligibility. And then we recall Trinidad Chambliss, who was granted his 6th year of eligibility at Ole Miss, Chandler Morris, who was unsuccessful seeking his 7th year of eligibility from UVA, and Joey Aguilar, who was also unsuccessful seeking his 7th year of eligibility at Tennessee. But if we move away from football and go to basketball, what really has us unnerved is all these old dudes who tried to go to the league unsuccessfully coming back. 2 cases this year that just kind of shook us, made us a little frustrated. James Najee, who was granted 4 years of eligibility by the NCAA, currently playing at Baylor. James Najee was not ever a collegiate athlete. He did not play in the U.S. He was drafted by the NBA. He did not play in the NBA, and he spent 4 years playing in Europe. Okay, 4 years of eligibility, James Najee. I'm sorry, his name was not, it was Charles Najee. Okay, and then we have James Bediako. Okay, James Bediako was the Alabama athlete who spent 2 years at Alabama, decided he was going to take his talents to the league, got drafted in the 2nd round, ended up in the G League, and spent several years in the G League and then came back to Alabama. The court ultimately found, they gave him a temporary restraining order, so he was able to play initially. The court ultimately found that he was not successful on the preliminary injunction, and so he did not remain on the team. So you got all these old folks hanging around. So all of that went on, and as all these people were bringing suit, so Trinidad Chambliss brought a lawsuit, Chandler Morris brought a lawsuit, Joey Aguilar brought a lawsuit, James Bediako brought a lawsuit. So over the last year, the NCAA has spent more than $16 million defending eligibility suits. $16 million, okay, with mixed results. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. So that is difficult for them to navigate. All that has happened since October 2025. Okay, now it appears that according to the reporting, all of this work that the NCAA has been contemplating on 5-for-5 has been going on prior to the announcement of the executive order, but the timing perhaps is just fortuitous or not, depending on your perspective. Okay, so October 2025, NCAA said they had no appetite. In September 2025, if I had on my lawyer hat, I would remind you, I am reminding you, that there was a case, Patterson versus the NCAA, where the Patterson plaintiffs, who were four-year athletes who started as freshmen, so they did not come in and get a red shirt, they did not have academic issues, they did not have athletic issues, they did not have medical issues, they were eligible to play for day one. They get to year four and they're like, wait, year five is the most lucrative. Why are we being penalized for coming in ready to play? We should get a fifth year of eligibility as well. And I looked at the case and read the facts and read the claim. And I was like, that's pretty persuasive. Well, as it turns out, in January of 2026, the court did not agree with these athletes and indicated that they would not be successful. They would not be granted a preliminary injunction. But the court did say that the record simply wasn't ripe enough, that it wasn't enough in the record to support the conclusion that the athletes were trying to draw. So NCAA heard that as well. It's like, okay, I might have won this year, but I might not win the next time because the record will be more developed. So all these things were happening. And the NCAA, is my perspective, was watching the landscape and like, we're in a bad spot. We got to create some stability here. Okay. So you may or may not like the 5 for 5, but I will tell you what it does. It does encourage academic progression because we need to remember that these are student athletes, and it is the job of a student athlete is to progress through college, not to hang on as long as they can because of NIL. Okay. You got 4 years or 5 years to get through this thing like everybody else. So it does encourage academic progression. All right. Now, and it time bars these old dudes, these old football players, these old basketball players that I talked about, regardless of whether it's women's sports or men's sports. It does incent people for moving through because you've got 5 years and a clock is ticking. So you're time bound to get through your college athletic career. Okay. It also creates predictability for high school recruits because these high school recruits are getting crammed down with all the movement of transfer portal and all these folks having success extending their eligibility. And in the era of the House settlement where there are fixed roster slots, you now have a fixed number of slots and all these people clamoring for them. You had the JuCo guys clamoring for them. You had the transfer portal folks clamoring for them. You had the old heads trying to get extra eligibility clamoring for them. On the basketball scene, you had G League guys clamoring for them. But it's a fixed number of roster spots, and those high school recruits were getting crammed down and their opportunities would be limited because people were not getting out of the pipeline, getting out of the funnel. So to create more predictability for them. Now, we'll see how this goes. And if the NCAA is successful making some progress on this before the next school year, which is when it likely would be effective if they made some progress, of course, they would have to figure out how to transition to this new plan because folks who are in college right now, student athletes right now, are under the old regime, and you just can't change the rules in the middle of the game. So there'd have to be some sort of transition plan to deal with the athletes that are currently in the system. Anyway, we will see what the NCAA does if they have any success getting this through. As always, let me know what you think.